Hi, I'm Seb from Profil Prague. I'm glad to welcome you, Robin Armstrong from Cosmograf. First of all,
Yeah,
how are you doing tonight?
great to talk to you.
Yes, Rattrapante is your eighth album and was just released. How did the lockdown and the pandemic situation did influence its making?
Um, I think with a lot of my albums, I sort of tend to enjoy um, being quite isolated, really, and a lot of my work observes the self, if you like, and is quite insular. So it's an examination of the human spirit in many ways, and it's a consistent subject I've covered throughout my albums. So I think Rattrapante was a a continuation of that, really. Not so much in a detailed way at looking at myself, but also or the self, human beings in general. But I got very interested in this sort of concept of time and how we perceive time in particular. I mean, I've written about time before, and in particular how it affects us, in terms of getting older, aging. Nostalgia and childhood memories and that sort of thing. But I think with this album, I was particularly interested in how different people perceive it in different ways and how different people use time. So I wouldn't have said particularly lockdown sort of made that more profound in a way, but I think it was forcing you to really to think about the different ways, the different ways that people are presented with the same situation, and we've all had our different aspects, different responses to that. So some people, I'm someone personally that enjoys almost enjoys the lockdown process because I'm quite sort of like a hermit, and I like to spend time alone, and it seems like a validation of that sort of behaviour and continuation of it. So. Um, Not much different from normal life for me. So, um, but really, the subject of the album, I think, first examines how some people try and beat time. They want to be the first, the best, the fastest. Their sort of existence is very much geared towards achievement and being the best in their field and that sort of thing. So I think that's really where the first sort of inklings of the idea came for a Rattrapante and beating time, really, and trying to beat time. So I had this idea of being my day job is I repair watches as well as music. So I was fascinated by the Rattrapante chronograph, which has this curious feature, which basically has a chronograph, but it has two chronographs built into the watch. So you can start the first one and then you pause the first one while the second one keeps on going. So, and then when you press another button, then the first hand then catches up with the second one. So it's this idea of catching up, sort of coming from the French word rattraper, and then basically I had this sort of idea of, well, that's how we observe life. We stop, we take in the view, and we stop time, and then we come back to the present day. We snap back out of that. So I was also interested in that analogy, if you like, and metaphor. So it grew from there. The whole sort of album grew from that.
And if we talk about watchmaking, even the
Yeah,
name Cosmograph is a reference to a
it is.
Swiss watch, I guess.
It is, and that's really where it started. Again, it was a reference from the Rolex Oyster Cosmograph, spelt slightly differently, the MPH at the end. But I was always been fascinated with watches for the last sort of 20, 25 years. So um, when I originally started doing music, I was not very happy about releasing music just under my name, Robin Armstrong. I just felt that there was other performers out there with the same name, and it felt very anonymous. So I wanted to come up with some sort of unique name, but also a name that would give you the impression that it could also be a solo project, but also a band as well. So it had that dual purpose. It didn't necessarily need to be a solo project. It could be a band. So that's how that came about.
And do you think music can be compared to watchmaking? It is to say, a matter of art and precision.
It is, yeah. That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, that's good. I think so, very much so. It both involve a high degree of discipline, I think, in terms of setting the right frameworks to make things work. There's a certain amount of procedure that has to be gone through to make things right, particularly in the production of the music. And of course, the obvious references with timekeeping and making sure that your performance is tight, and which is something I particularly strive to do. Is certainly with recording music, is making sure that I'm very in time, very very synchronous, very in time with other parts within that I'm playing, which are often parts that I'm playing myself. So I'm almost making sure that my internal metronome is keeping time for the rest of the parts that I'll later produce. So yeah, exactly.
And the opening track is 1985, a
Yeah.
beautiful yet nostalgic piece of music. What can you tell us about it through this sentence? Life aid has gone, but famine rages on, it rages on, and Bowie and Freddie are gone.
Yeah, that was the sort of the final reference, really. I mean, the whole song was about childhood and having this experience watching Live Aid when I was 15 years old, and it to me it was seemed to be the starting point of me opening my eyes to this a wonderful world of rock music and aspiring to be a rock musician in the future. And I think that line you just quoted there was basically me saying that those are the big differences now between now and back in 1985. I was 15 in 1985, and now I'm 51. And when you look at the sort of status of that, both my two great heroes, or two of my great heroes of that era, Freddie Mercury and David Bowie, are now dead. But we still haven't solved the other problems that we had in 1985, like the famines and so forth, and people starving in the world, despite all the many years that have passed. So it was almost like a bittersweet reference, nostalgic reference, but also an angry reference that despite all of those years have passed, we haven't really resolved the problems that we had in 1985 either. So I've just got older, and now my heroes are dead as well. So it's a little bit dark as well. So that's really where that line came from.
And at the beginning, it sounds like a concert, a live gig. What do you
Yeah,
think?
exactly that. I mean, and that's exactly how I wanted it to be perceived. It was I wanted it to conjure up this image of literally sitting in a huge stadium with thousands and thousands of people waiting for the concert to start, and it was building the anticipation of the excitement of either going to your first gig as a young teenager, or seeing your heroes, your guitar heroes, for the first time. So the whole approach to that track was very bombastic, very it was a real sort of classic rock. With a few cliches in there as well, of course, and quite sort of overblown guitar solos and things like that. So it was very much not done tongue in cheek, but it was done nostalgically referencing my love of and wanting to express that sort of excitement about hearing a real big rock concert for the first time.
Of course. The whole album is just fantastic and is one of the best things I heard since a long time to me. Yes, really. How is the feedback so far?
It's been really good. The reviews have been really, really excellent. Been very heartwarming to sort of see them. Really, it's always a worry putting new music out there. It is one of the big stresses of being a musician and putting your art out there, that how it's going to be perceived. And I have this sort of belief that I really don't like to make the same album twice. So the last album, previous to this one, Mind Over Depth, I went in a quite heavy direction, sort of bordering on prog metal, but with a lot of classic heavy metal in there as well. And I didn't want to do that again. I wanted to come slightly differently this time, and I think this one is more in a sort of classic rock direction. It nods more towards bands like Queen and Rainbow and things like that, especially in 1985 and Deep Purple and obvious influences. But also as the album progresses, it starts to go a little bit more back into a more 80s influence as well, especially with tracks like Time Will Flow. So I try to keep every album slightly different in terms of the approach, in terms of the instrumentation, so they've all got their own individual identity. So some people like that, the fact that it changes each time. Other people, you'll get some fans that say, I don't like this direction, why couldn't you have kept that direction? You see that all the way through the progressive rock scene with lots of other bands, and we're all aware of the situations with people like Steven Wilson, and they produce a very dramatic, different album, and the whole progressive rock fan world goes completely crazy. So you can't please everybody, but it's something I like to do, is to push things in slightly different directions, and hopefully people will come along with me.
When I prepared this interview, I read a lot of reviews, and I found something interesting this morning.
Mm-hmm.
One journalist said this was not necessarily your best album so far, but surely the most interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I'd accept that. It's really difficult. I mean, I think from a fan perspective, I think most fans seem to agree, and certainly that from what I know of the streaming figures, that my most popular album will always be The Man Left in Space. I think it's the one that identifies me to the largest number of fans. So it's quite difficult to produce an album that approaches that sort of same level, really, in terms of getting the concept right and getting it the same. What I don't want to do is just go and produce another Man Left in Space. I mean, I've been tempted to try and do that, to do a sequel or something like that, or do something that's very similar, but I think it's a mistake, and I don't think there's a problem with me saying, I've done that now, I'm moving on to other things. That album will always be there for you to enjoy. So I think some reviewers occasionally can maybe think this album isn't as good as the last one, or there's this constant comparison going on artistically between albums, and it doesn't worry me, really. I'm not concerned about that. It's as long as I'm producing consistently the same quality of work, in my eyes, I think it's okay.
In terms of music, we used to love comparison and compare one band to another. For example, you to Pink Floyd or even Steven Wilson. In my opinion, I would say Cosmograf is quite unique, with a strong musical identity. How could you define it?
I think it has a number of influences. I think one of the things that define it is the common theme with all of everything I've done is I tend to write as if I'm almost like a film director. I like the atmosphere that's something that really appeals to me in all the music that I create. Is I try and, above all everything else, is create some sort of atmosphere, which can be created in different ways. It might be different styles. It might be something that's symphonic, or it might be something that's really heavy. We're using heavy guitars, or it might be something that uses, like I did in the Unreasonable Silence. There's almost like a film narrative with lots of voice actors taking different parts and that sort of thing. So, but the common theme, I think, is with my music is I try and tell a story in some way, whether the story is confined to the one song or whether it's confined to the entire album. Those different things, but I try and paint a picture or try and almost like sort of create a film within that song or that album.
I would say cinematic rock.
Yeah, cinematic. Yeah, I mean that's the word maybe I was grasping for as being, summing it up. I mean, I love film. Film is one of my loves, and I think a lot of music that I write, I'm seeing the visuals of the film, but obviously I can't create that. But I can create the music which I think goes with the visuals that are running through my head. So I think that's maybe where I'm coming from. Yeah.
I was listening. I stick to you once again this morning, and I was
Yeah.
thinking this could be both one of your best creation and your first love song. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably. I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, elements of The Man Left in Space had a sort of a love song, but it wasn't very clear. But this was a definite love song for sure. But it's a little bit off the beaten track for me. It's a little bit different. I have to say the song itself, out of all the songs certainly on this album, and has been more difficult to present to the fans. I think that they've not taken to this particular song as well as they may have other songs, because of the whether that's because of the video, which for the first time sort of featured this sort of duet between a man and a woman, which is a little bit off the Cosmograf track. But I don't know. I mean, it is a definite love song for sure, and I love it. I just love the direction of it. But I think one of the big features of it is that Chrissy, who I worked with on it, just took it in a pushed it in really hard into a special direction for me, into quite an ethereal direction, and it was really following that I sort of that really cemented the concept of that song for me. That the fact that it was basically a very dark sort of love tale, a tale about love, really, and a mythical tale, which I particularly like the concept of.
Robin, do you love philosophy? Because I was asking myself as you wrote this, try to remember how it used to be. Your mind distorts reality and changes what you see. This is highly spiritual and very Buddhist, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something I am interested in. Yeah, for sure. I got very
I was
interested.
right.
You were right, yes. I got very interested in philosophy and also mental health, actually, prior to my previous album, Mind Over Depth, which was really what Mind Over Depth was about. That album was about the challenge with yourself, the challenge of your own mental health, and it was a very simple concept, really. Through that period, I became sort of quite interested in the works of people like Eckhart Tolle and sort of Buddhist ideas, and also just ideas for the wellness of mind, really, and that sort of thing. So. And how we perceive things, and how our thoughts dictate our happiness and that sort of thing. So, very much so, yeah. And that's something I think that I'll always have an interest in.
What are your plans and wishes for the future?
Plans and wishes. I think I'm starting. I've been very averse to playing live for a number of years now for various reasons. One of which is I haven't really had the opportunity and the ability to get a decent sort of band together and translate all of the sort of complicated Cosmograf parts into that. The last time I played live was back as Cosmograf was back in 2014.
No, a long time ago.
Long time ago. We planned to get back together that same band as back in 2 years ago. Well, we're going to at the beginning of lockdown, and we had gigs set up, and of course those all went out the window with COVID. So we're just at the time now we're starting to get back in. We've got a rehearsal booked for next month. So what you'll probably see over the next year or so is Cosmograf will start to develop a more live reputation, and we'll be doing more shows. We won't be doing a huge amount of shows. It's too costly and too difficult, but there'll be a certain number of shows that we want to do and get out there and start be presenting ourselves more as a complete band rather than just me in the studio. So that will be happening. There's other things I want to do too, and I've got another album written, which hopefully will come out next year. I did plan to do it this year, but I just can't fit it in now. There's too much going on. So that will be coming out, and there's various other projects. I'm also run a small label, Gravity Dream Music, and I've got various acts or various artists that will be coming onto the label to add to the roster as well. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make that happen. So yeah, it's pretty busy at the moment.
Yes, that's good. I used to end my interviews with short question. Just tell me one first question. The song you wish you had written.
Oh, that's so difficult. It would probably be something like Trains by Stephen Wilson, something like that, or yeah. That's probably, I won't go into others because you only want one, but.
And the artist or the band you would have loved to play with?
Oh, so many. I'll say John Lord.
John Lord.
Yeah, but there could be so many.
Another one.
Another one. I'd have loved to have played with Dave Gilmour.
Good choice.
Yeah.
And last question: what do you like the most in life? Difficult question.
I think ultimately it has to be the freedom to do what I want. I think that's probably ultimately, because the freedom and health to do what I want. I think that's probably that encompasses a lot of things to make that happen. But without having that, I wouldn't be able to do what I want to do and create the music I want to do. And it is a bit of a luxury to have the ability to do that, and without sort of worrying. Obviously I do have to worry about the money coming in, but it's nice to have that freedom to do exactly what I want to do. And I've sort of made that a little bit of a life's goal in the last sort of 5 years to at some point in your life say I'm only going to do what I really want to do. So that's what I value. Yeah.
I love the way you think. I love the way you do music, Robin.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
So that's the end. Thank you, Robin, once again for your time, and once again congratulations for this fantastic album. See you soon. I wish all the best for the future, and I wish to see you live one day, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure it will happen hopefully one day. Thank you for inviting me on.
See you and have a good evening. Bye bye, Robin. Thank you once again. Bye bye.
Bye bye.